Colors of joy.
Good day, this is Patrick Espana, and over the course of PHILITS as a class, we were exposed to three different kinds of literature: fiction, poetry, and drama in a nutshell. And it does put into perspective a lot about our local literature scene and how much beauty is in it. So, after reading our selection in fiction, I realized that fiction can be a roller coaster. Why roller coaster, you may ask? It takes you to a sort of immersion that, of course, you wouldn't see in everyday life. The idea of flying, for example, is one thing that we cannot grasp as human beings on our own, because we have equipments like airplanes, hang gliders to do the flying for us, but to do it naturally is to say another thing. That's why fiction is really intriguing, because there are things that goes on there normally that you can only imagine here in real life. Or in another case, it doesn't really have to be about things that are purely based off components of fantasy or things that doesn't occur, in our normal setting, but we can also put ourselves in someone else's shoes about how their lives are a lot different than ours. Basically, it is realistic but fictional in the sense that it's not you, the character being represented isn't a real character but a made up one with its own with his or her own arc and different characteristics that makes them, regardless of round or flat, that makes them who they are. They have their own thinking, their own standpoint in life, and their own background. So the one that we tackled is at the train station. It's a roller coaster, like what I said earlier. Emotions flutters all over the place whenever you look in the eyes of the main character or the eyes of the mother. And also flashbacks plays a dramatic role about what got them to this point in life and what are their thoughts about how the situation they are currently in makes them the character of who they are today or at the moment as we speak. So that's my whole takeaway on fiction. It does bring about a whole new meaning of perspective and trying to, since the word fiction, so fiction is like an escape from reality and puts you in a whole new immersion of being somebody else, not necessarily the elements of things that are fantasy or far-fetched, but just the idea that you are not you. You are in the perspective or in the shoes of the character that you read. You can empathize with them, or you can oppose to what they believe in. So that's what I learned in fiction. Next up is poetry. Far more shorter than fiction as far as the substance is concerned, but the lack in length doesn't compromise in the lack of content. And after reading our selection poetry, I realized that poetry can be colorful, to say the least. What I got from poetry was there were so many blends of figures of speeches, a lot of interpretation to be done. You cannot just take things at face value, and that's the fun part of it, because We all have different minds, we all think differently, and to each of his or her own interpretation of what they can take away from such poem. And for the briefness of it, it does have a lot to interpret because it's not in a literal sense that you can simply just decipher what's just shown in the screen, but there are times that words do play into each other, and that's nice because there's like a build up for one, and then number two, it just complements each other as the lines per stanza wraps itself into the next one. And then the one that I have is Rain by Danton Remoto, and or sorry, Rain by Harleen Bautista. And then Water Slides Down like Tongue on Skin. Um it's the total polar opposite of personification, which takes the form of, there's a lot of personification rather, that inanimate objects or animals, plants, they're able to do things that, or at least have certain movements, actions to them that they wouldn't normally do. As in, for example, like water slides down the leaves like tongue and skin. Although that's a simile right there. But think about it, tongue and skin, the comparison that was being drawn there is basically a personification in a way, because all the objects that are being pertained are in a more human form because they can do things that they wouldn't do. Soon night will steal hours from the day. So that's a very colorful wording there. That's what I like about poems, because poetry, they take a lot of figure of speeches, similes, personification, metaphors, obviously, and here and there oxymorons or irony, just to be a bit more playful. They also have a deeper hidden meaning. Like what I said, you cannot just take everything in face value, and you gotta decipher it, and it's gonna be a debate or at least a discussion from one person to another. So that's my whole take from it, and honestly, I think it's just simply beautiful. That's why, as centuries pass by, it's still a very renowned form of literature that people will simply, not just academically, but read and just ponder, like, what does this poet want his or her message across? Where was he or she mentally at the time when this poem was made? And finally, the latter one being drama. So after reading our selection drama, I realized that drama can be introspective. Emotional is already a given because there's gonna be a lot of lines, and you will find out what this person is feeling when they are going about the conversation and with another character. And there are no, for the most part, there wouldn't be any narration, because no, there isn't supposed to be a narration. You're supposed to like interpret as the third person. You are the third person. There isn't no third person who will be doing this for you to have your standpoint. No, it's not like that. You are the third person, and then you're gonna figure out how this person is going about certain situations that they're in and the conversations. And that's what I like about dramatization. It does convey emotions. You can tell through their dialogues, in their language and expression, about how they feel and what's running through their mind based on what someone says. So, for example, paglilitis ni Mang Serapio, the dalawang tagapagtanong, Silencio! You can obviously tell that that person is angry, and the fact that someone said silencio or be quiet or shut up, however you interpret that is up to you, is particularly angry with a certain individual feeling disrespected because it's already at the point that you gotta tell someone to be quiet, and or it could be they're hurting from saying words that are actually painful regardless of respect or not. So that's what I like about that's what I took from drama, because you can obviously see the emotions that runs through them through their words, and it's a dialogue more than anything. So it's like whenever you do listen to an argument up close and personal, this one being more emphasized on a certain scenario, but um that's what I like, when you don't have to have someone tell you which one is right or wrong, but rather that's for you to take, because everyone has their own take of which is the truly valid standpoint. And it's fun. It's longer than the other two. It's not about, narrating where they are or using a lot of figures of speeches, but it's more about conveying emotions, and that's my whole takeaway from drama. So the caveat, how will this affect me after my life as a student here in CSP? PHILITS class. What will I take from it in my working life or as a member of society? For one, it just makes me more of a, not, I wouldn't say responsible citizen, but I'd rather say a responsible national of this country. You are carrying some of the things that the greats in the world of literature, whatever medium that he or she may prefer, to something that you will remember for the rest of your life. Not fully, but there's always gonna be a lesson here and there, something you take with a grain of salt, and some things that just can't, while not bound to happen, at least you have the knowledge of it, and it shows that Philippine literature is something that you're gonna take with you wherever. And then it will also develop me as an individual, in the sense that always take things with a grain of salt, never take things at face value, and as cliche as the saying goes, never judge a book by its cover. So it will also help me in expressing myself too, because there, in poems, for example, how they use a lot of figure speeches. Drama, how it uses a lot of dialogues that are highly emotional. And then in fiction, how you would write about a story based on how you could say you're feeling. So it helps me to be a lot more colorful as a person, being expressive in ways that I don't normally do. Like if you just like vent out or express your enthusiasm about life, or like what I said earlier about venting, how the stress in your life, the drama that was built up. I mean, of course, to those are ways to not suppress your feelings, but it will also be nice that if ever you are emotionally going through something, whatever that may be, in a way, you are inspired to be able to have a creative output based on that kind of emotion that you are experiencing or depicting at the moment. This situation that you were stuck in that you wanted to get out of, for example, or this thing that you wanted your entire life and you are this close to attaining it. That's what I learned, to be more expressive, to be more creative. And that wraps up everything. I'm just pondering right now how much I've learned. I mean, it won't be technical, it won't be textbook in definition. It wouldn't exactly translate to how word per word we were taught from what we were presented through PowerPoint or slideshows, but I just want to assure that whoever does watch this, I did learn something, and honestly, I am grateful for it. That there are colorful ways to just be who you are, not just grayscale, everyday living in the matrix on a routine kind of way of showing yourself, but in a more beautiful, not necessarily composed, but um, very quirky way to express yourself. So that's what I took from it. So I'm Patrick Espana, and thank you for listening to what I have to say. So subscribe, like, and share. And since it's already December, I just want to say to all of y'all, happy holidays, guys. Peace.